So today on the podcast, we have Dan Guest. Dan is the founder and visionary at Guest Plumbing and HVAC. So Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me. It's a beautiful Toronto evening. I feel like we're about to go on a sunset cruise after.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dan, today I want to learn a little bit about you, what you're building at Guest. I want to learn about your podcast as well. I know you have that. Tell me about Trade Smart College. Tell me about you, everything that's going on.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks again for having me. Just started. I'm a licensed plumber and gas fitter.
Mm-hmm.
Born and raised in Hamilton, Ontario, not too far from Toronto, where we are now. And really, just went through a journey when I got started of starting in residential plumbing. Got into the mechanical side of things. So worked for a pretty big mechanical firm and Matina Mechanical, which is on
Right.
Stony Creek. They're a fantastic company to work for. Great guys. Dom, Sammy, Vince. Three brothers own it. So it's a pretty intense environment for sure. And then, so just I was working for them for a number of years. Always doing a little bit of stuff on the side. And one of the guys that I was working for on the side started hitting it big.
Right.
And gave me an opportunity to work on a building downtown Hamilton. It's a pretty unique project. It was actually connecting three buildings to a fourth new building.
Right.
It started out just being plumbing, and then it ended up being full hydronics.
No way. That was your first project?
Yeah. I said no to him a couple times, and I was young at the time. I started the business at 23.
Right.
And I was really into real estate, so I had a mentor of mine that worked at Matina,
Right.
and he was doing well. He was about 30, Leo Pernice,
Mm-hmm.
great dude, and he seemed pretty happy. He worked a lot, made a good salary, but he also had rentals on the side.
Right.
So I thought, okay, I'll do that too. Then you just learn from the person in front of you.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, well, if I can make $1,000 a week, and I can get some of my time back,
Yeah. I
I can get more rentals.
Right.
And there's a funny concept of starting a business to get your time back.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
That's always how it starts, right?
Yeah, that's the thought process. It's just so naive. But yeah, and then that's how Guest started. Branded pretty well. I always tell the story about, I never thought it would get to this size until I started thinking bigger.
Right.
And after, I used to say one more van and then I'm good, one more van and then I'm good. And then after 5 vans, I just started saying let's see where we can take this.
Right.
So that was a big shift in terms of where we wanted to go, how we wanted to do it, and then really just build a team around it.
Right. That's incredible. So you started saying, okay, I want freedom, I want more time back, and then essentially ended up running walls to the wall straight into, now you're just building a massive plumbing company essentially, right?
Yeah. It's interesting when people talk about massive. We're trying to build a sustainable plumbing company.
Right.
Sustainability is really important. Diversity is important. As we've seen the markets shift and move and shake, and people our age, I think, have such a great opportunity to be able to see businesses go through challenges.
Yeah.
So if you bought a house 10 years ago, you should be doing okay right now.
Yeah.
We've never seen a downturn, and I think it's really important to see from business side of things how people react when things aren't, I wouldn't say easy because it's never easy, but
Right.
things aren't as fluid.
Yeah.
Right. Well, how do you deal with challenges? So COVID, pretty big challenge for anybody that was alive. Regardless of if you made money or not, it was still hard.
Yeah.
You had to deal with conflicting family views, conflicting political views, conflicting arguments, health.
Yeah.
People close to me passed away. Weren't able to see them in the hospital. People having babies, where you think it would be like such a successful, exciting time, not being able to have both parents in the room, stuff like that. Stuff sometimes you forget. But we made it. We made it through. Right? Let's celebrate that. So in business, I think sometimes it's never going to be easy, but sometimes when you overcome hard, it's a little bit more exciting.
Right. Absolutely. So now you're sort of setting that groundwork for you going through the hard parts and
Yeah.
The easy parts are just easy at this point, right?
Yeah, just enjoy them. You know what I mean? When things go well, keep kicking it. So yeah, like a little bit of our vision. So we want to be kind of more satellite locations, so smaller locations, but doing kind of strategic planning. So our bread and butter is residential and light commercial. So we don't do high rise. We don't really do ICI. We try to take on 1 to 2 bigger projects a year, and we usually know the owners of that. So those are really based on relationships. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, we build, based on relationships," but we don't do bid spec work.
Right.
So a lot of our projects come in through the door based on myself or our sales team getting to know and understanding someone else's business.
Right.
And then working towards that. It's like when you talk about being massive, like, being massive in our own right, but also making sure that our clients are like, we like long-term clients.
Right. So you're really sticking to your core clients. You're not really looking, like I use the word massive, but you're not really looking to build a massive sort of like fast-paced scale. You really want to have that core group of clients and treat them well and sort of grow with them, right? That's kind of my understanding.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm 33. So, to have 45 staff and 2 locations at 33, I'm very grateful and proud. It's our 10th year of business this year, which we're really grateful to be here. And yeah, like when you see a good tradesperson doing what they're good at, it's incredible. Right. And a high-rise tradesman or tradeswoman versus a residential home installer versus a commercial ICI. Like I work with some of the best plumbers I've ever met. Way better than me. Way better. And they do it all day, every day. Right. And so to make somebody or a group of people try to do different things all the time, I don't think really like gravitating or grabbing all their skill set. Yeah. So, the guys that do high rise, my hat's off to you. The guys that do big mechanical, my hat's off to you. We'll stay in our space. Right. If you want to join the team, come on over. But yeah, we let the big dogs do their work and we stay where we're at.
That's fantastic. I love it. So you're the visionary at Guest, right?
Yes.
Tell me about that. Most people call themselves CEO, president, whatever it may be. Why are you the visionary?
Yeah, it took me a while to actually change that title. It was a little bit of ego, I think, comes into things in terms of like, who am I to, put that statement out there. But I joined a peer coaching group called Tech Canada at the time. And they got me onto an organizational structure called EOS, which stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And its strategy is written in a book called Traction. In Traction, they use the terminology visionary and integrator. And I saw it and I fell in love with it, to be honest with you. Right. I found it really did stick out to what I was doing and where I was at. And it catches people's eye. And I really think like, sometimes people are defined by positions, but it's more about what do you do for and in your business. Right. Right. And I had a coach ask me one time, like, what would happen if you didn't show up tomorrow? Right. Like, would the business survive? I said, like, well, yeah, it'd survive. But would it go forward? Like, would it thrive? Would there be, a vision, and would people put it together? And I really don't think there would be. Right. Our team is teams need to be led and teams need to be focused. And I don't think it's not that they wouldn't, have a vision eventually, but the team that we've built and the people around myself and all the other people in the business, like, everyone's got such an important position, and my position is just as important as anybody else's. Right. Right. If you don't have somebody, locking the vans at night, you can't drive them in the morning. If you don't have somebody going out and seeking where you're going to go and how to get work, you're not going to have any work tomorrow. So
tell me about your team. Like, something I really admire about you and how you run your company. I just see, like, from the outside, right, on LinkedIn, I see your team posts and everything. Everybody just seems like they're going after it. They're motivated. Like, everyone just seems hyped to be working there. How do you build that culture? Tell me about that.
Yeah. It's funny. Culture is such an important thing. Recently, we had a manager leave 2 weeks ago. Right. And you could really beat yourself up about that, especially as a business owner. Oh my God, culture's shit.
Yeah.
What's happening? Everyone's going to leave. And the nice thing about culture is reflection.
Right.
So, well, why did this person leave? Okay. Is it that we're offering a poor, opportunity for them? Have they not seen the vision? So there's a conversation that we use at Guest. It's called look in the mirror.
Right.
So before you assume blame or fault on somebody else, you look in the mirror. So have I set the right example? Have I given them tools to succeed? And when I supported them along the way. Right. So that expectation or example is like very important when people talk about culture and how the team leads. So a lot of our team, especially from an online presence, they love what they do. Right. But they do feel a little bit of an imposter by posting on social media, which even though it's LinkedIn, it's still social media for them. Yeah. So I remember myself in their shoes. So I try to really help and support them, like push through the uncomfortable feeling of like being online. Yeah. Some of our managers, like, Steven, for instance, is our plumbing manager for Toronto. He walked in with like safety cowboy boots, right? Like, the last thing from social media that you could ever think about. Yeah. But how do you get yourself out there, right? How do people know about you? You can have the cure to cancer, and if no one can find you, then you're no good.
So you're sort of just getting your stuff out there, right?
Yeah, sharing it with the world, and like, anybody that's a business owner on LinkedIn understands the opportunity that's going to happen when you put your guys out there. Yeah. They're going to get headhunted. They're going to get approached. And you have to be confident in yourself that you've created a good opportunity for them and address the fact that, hey, guys, you're putting yourself out there now. Right. You're showcasing what we do. You're going to get pushback. Yeah. Good pushback or bad pushback. You got to be able to accept both.
Yeah. So how do you deal with that? That's something that I've faced myself, right? I don't do it as well as you do, but I try and, push my guys, post on social media, show this stuff we do, all that kind of stuff. And, you always get, people approach them and you hope that they stay because they like your business, right? But how do you deal with that side of it? Like keeping people while they're also getting so much more opportunities through what you're pushing them to do, essentially, right?
Yeah. I think it's just it's a deep, are you scared or are you excited? Yeah. Right. So it's like the definition between anxious and excitement is just a silver little line. Right.
So kind of like, cousins, right?
Yeah. It's like, I'm feeling really anxious or I'm really excited. It's the same thing. So for me, it's just being confident in what you offer. Right. And also genuinely being happy for people to go and do better. Right. So like, I've got the guy that left us 2 weeks ago. He's getting a job closer to home. He just bought his first house. This is going to help him and his partner live a better life. Right. I can't fault him for it. I'm happy for him. Yeah. I wish him all the best. Right. Instead of, the alternative, which is like, what the fuck? Where's he going? You know how much do you know how much money I put into him?
I could only imagine.
Yeah. So like, he doesn't see that. Yeah. Well, whose fault is that? It's probably my fault by not showcasing it to him. Or maybe we shouldn't have put him in that position. Or maybe when he was looking at a house, I could have guided him differently. But those are my intentions, not for him. Right. So if you truly want the best for everybody, sometimes you got to let them go. Right.
That makes sense.
Getting really wisdom.
No, it's brilliant. Like because that's something I struggle with a little bit in my business, right? Like we had similar situation recently. A tech left. It was a younger guy, but we brought him on, trained him up. He was really part of our team, right? We enjoyed having him there. Now he got a better opportunity and he essentially left. But same thing. At first, I was kind of bummed about it. I was like, man, we must suck. Like we can't keep good guys, right? But then, once he left the company, he now comes back and visits us, right? Because he comes and buys things from us. Of course. And it's kind of cool because you see him like he's gone off onto a better path. He's enjoying the new company. And he still comes back and he likes to be around our team still. So it's kind of like, at first I was like, man, this sucks. But now I'm like, okay, this is incredible, right? Like we've built something that people want to come back to in a sense, right? So I really know where I was going with that, but
Yeah, no. I mean, my hat's off to you, right? Like you can't not go through the emotion.
yeah,
You have to go through it. And those, those situations that come up, and I guess my piece of advice and something that we're actually working on at Guest is like creating a roadmap for them.
right.
So like, the apprenticeship roadmap is pretty straightforward. But do they know it? Right? 90% of our technicians, when they come in, they don't know the apprenticeship program.
Right.
They don't understand it. Right? When they ask for raises, they have no idea what they're talking about. They don't know that, $1 an hour is $2,000 a year.
Yeah.
Like they don't get it. Right? Well, it's like, okay, well then like, what does this look like? Right? So when you're going through, creating expectations for people, you have to also know what the life cycle is of a person in your business.
Okay.
So like, it's hard for guys like us because we're younger, but is somebody supposed to start their career with you and end their career with you? Probably not. Right? Yeah. So you might say, listen, I got 4 good years on that person. I got to keep doing this. And then you got to train better. And then you got to, in terms of retention, like people get complacent at the same location too. It's like a good secretary.
Right.
If you have a secretary that works with you that's ambitious, they usually don't stay as a secretary.
Right.
So if you don't have somewhere for them to grow into, you should cycle them every, whatever you want, 4 to 6 years.
Right. So in a sense, you kind of use it to build your machine in the sense that like you're bringing on people, but your machine is okay. They want to come to your company, but once they come to your company, where are they going from there? Right? You're not kind of sticking people in one spot. You're constantly evolving them in a sense.
Yeah, if you're evolving and looking to grow,
right?
If you look at the big corporate ladder, a lot of people don't go somewhere because they already know the person ahead of them isn't retiring anytime soon.
Right.
So they go, listen, they're not making new positions at this big corporate entity. They've set their standards, right? So that's why people jump a little bit. I always say, change is good, right? And people are great. You never know, like, we have some just great people, and bringing them through, and you don't know what type of, I don't know if you have kids or not, but like, people have different times in their life where they're going to be great, and sometimes they're going to be less great.
Right. That makes sense. Something I admire about you a lot, like we don't know each other very well, but I see you on social media, your thing pops up on my feed every now and then. And I checked your LinkedIn before this. You're always just so positive. And even talking to you now, you very much focus on the positive side. Like everything I brought up to you, it could kind of be put in a negative light, but you kind of show the positive side of it. How do you stay like that?
Yeah, that's funny. So I spoke at an under 40 event 2 weeks ago now. Right. And I bring this up, and my ex-girlfriend's not watching, so I can say it. But I was going through probably I wasn't always like this. I used to be very, I was always nice, but I was very egotistical, very judgmental. I would always wonder like how you're doing so good, why I'm not doing so good, or, you have and I don't have. And I kind of went through a journey on, learning actually through podcasts, through listening to podcasts, different ways of thinking, because I didn't have those thinkers around me. And going out and seeking them on a podcast was just, it was life-changing to say the least. Right. And then going through a couple different journeys on, of taking some courses and stuff like that. What service you? But I had an ex-girlfriend one time, tell me that I was, toxically positive.
Right.
She said,
that's one way to put it.
Yeah. She said, you always look at the positive. It fucking bothers me. And I'm like, okay. She goes, you're going to explode one day. And I go, well, if I get hit by a bus, it's okay to die with those negative thoughts, right? Instead of putting them out to the world. So I tried it for 2 weeks. People, how's it going? I'd say, I'm in a rut and things aren't going so well at the moment. Right. And it was the worst 2 weeks of my life. Right. Everybody just jumped on the negativity, kind of flew into it. There's a quote by there's a show recently, Ted Lasso. I'm not sure if you saw the soccer show.
No.
But he says, be curious, not judgmental. Right. And so we're sitting here, we get into a beautiful place like this, you wonder, okay, what does this business look like? Okay, we're in a podcast studio. Okay, what does this guy do? And instead of judging, coming in with judgment, come in with curiosity.
Right.
And then you learn. Instead of coming in with false judgment, which is always false until you confirm it, right? And so it's like, just be curious, right? I would have never known that I was going to speak with a white guy tonight with a Trinidadian accent, which I got corrected that I said Jamaican at first, which I loved. Because, I don't know, but I feel confident enough that I'm never coming from a place of judgment to ask those questions.
Right.
If someone was coming from a judgment place of like, who the fuck is this person? And how did they get here? And why am I on a podcast like that? It's like, wow. Instead of saying yes to a LinkedIn DM, being curious, saying, wow, what an asset this guy could be in my life. And what kind of balls he has to ask a stranger to come out on a podcast. I commend you for it.
Thank you.
And see a lot of myself in you. So it's like, what do you mean? Right? And then things start coming easier. The answers to your questions start coming easier. You just ask the questions. Right? And then you're not stuck in this world of like kind of wonder or thought. You have answers and then you can act.
So in a way, you're kind of just attracting good things coming to you by putting that out, right? Like,
it always happens, right? I knew this podcast was going to be great tonight.
Really?
Of course.
Why?
The way you approached it, the way you reached out, the reasons why. Also the understanding that I missed for everybody listening, I missed his DM and he wasn't rude about it. Right? He understands maybe it happened, I was busy. Some people get their back up when they're asking for things on how to respond to stuff.
Right.
And I thought it was great how you took that. And it'll be great. You're doing it for good things, good reasons.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That means a lot.
100%, man.
So I guess transition away from that, tell me a bit about the philanthropy side. I always struggle with that word, but tell me about
I hate it. I hate it, by the way.
Philanthropic side of it.
Yeah. My first philanthropist, which is, I just think it's a dumb word for a good person. I think it's a dumb word for a good person. There's a couple of things about philanthropy that kind of got me going. How's the mic on that? Still good, yeah. So when we started, it was interesting. First couple of years of business, I think after about the first year, you start getting peppered with this new thing that's never happened, which is, can you sponsor me?
Right.
Can you sponsor my kids' hockey team? Can you sponsor a soccer team, baseball team, charity, coat drive, food drive? And I'm like, somebody that always wants to give. I was like, yes. Well, all of a sudden, it's got 20 grand down the toilet, not down the toilet, but into these things that I don't know the outcomes of. And I listened to Gary Vee, I'm not sure if you heard of him. He's a great podcaster. Talks about everybody should have a personal brand. That's one of the reasons I have a podcast. Right. And I was starting to feel a little bit of guilt because everybody was recognizing us as the company that was always out there giving back. Right. And it was like, well, am I only doing it for business? That was kind of my like mental concern. Yeah.
Like, so you always have to consider, right? Like, what's the outcome or what's the return, right?
What's the ROI? Yeah. And he said the best thing. He just goes, Dan, he didn't say it to me, but I felt like he was talking to me. He goes, if the worst thing that happens from you being a great person is you getting business, he's like, you got other things to worry about. And it just kind of just shut the door on the thought, right? Just you figured it out. Just don't think about it anymore. Now every year we pick, we do about 4 events a year, and we try to make them as little to no cost as possible. So they're more of like, we do a used coat drive, so there's no output of cost. Obviously, maybe you could sell the jacket or something like that, but there's no output of cost. We do a back to school drive where we put together like an Amazon wish list. So if you have $5 or $1,000, you can donate, and then we take it back to an underprivileged thing downtown Hamilton. We do a food drive at different times of the year because we've actually gone out and talked to some of those associations. And at Christmas and Thanksgiving, they get too much food, right? So they need food in May and June, and throughout the summertime. So we try to like really support them in that sense. And then we try to pick stuff that we can see the return on. And if anybody's run a business or run a non-for-profit, there's so many. There's so many different organizations that do such good things. Right. That being said, as a small business, which is what we are, and for anybody that wants to talk to a bank on what small business is,
it's a rude awakening. Huh?
It's a rude awakening. So you're small for a while. Yeah. You're considered small up to $50 million. Yeah. So when your $20 million business is still small. Yeah. And we're nowhere near any of those numbers, just to let everybody know. But yeah, so small, medium, and large business, like let the large business go get after cancer. Right. Let them have their mandates that they go and do that. Let the small businesses help the small organizations. And I think that's really important to connect those dots. $5,000 to cancer research from Guest isn't going to do anything, and it's going to move a huge needle in our community. Right. So we kind of made a decision to focus in on that. And then also we have a budget now every year. Right. And so if you ever feel attacked from an asking standpoint, guys and girls out there, if you're ever running a business, it's really good to ask them where the money goes. Right. A lot of people just want to ask, they don't have any answers. Yeah. And then, ask them to give you their proposal for funds.
Right. So kind of you want to see where the money is going if you're putting your money behind
you want me to buy a foursome to a golf tournament? Right. Where's the money going? Right. How much of my $2,000 is going to go to a charity? You want me to spend $1,000 to your hockey team? Where's that going? Is it going to shirts? Is it going to t-shirts? Or is it going to go to extra practices? Like, the under 14 team doesn't need
a new t-shirt, right? They need more ice time, right?
Yeah, right. So like whatever they might, whatever feels good to you. But when you get into business, all of a sudden you have a lot of friends.
Right. Yeah. I know how that is.
Yeah.
That's good. So
I hope that answers the question.
No, it does.
I think there's a huge need for small businesses to give back. Again, get involved in the community. I can't stress it enough. Share it. Don't feel guilty for sharing. You're letting other people know that it's out there. You're putting a little bit of a target on your back for more donations, but you can manage that as it comes.
Right. And you seem to sort of deeply ingrain that into your company's culture as well, right? The whole giving back. Like I see you guys do the drives, and I guess like you say, you're not really pumping a bunch of money behind it, but you're sort of putting your time in and, sort of gathering from the community in a sense, right? As opposed to just pumping money in and forgetting about it.
It's a huge amount of time, yeah. Right. Yeah, I have some fantastic people that I've learned from over the years that do a great job. You can't there isn't always money. Yeah. But these places always need things. Right. So what we try to do is find things that are needed and support them in that way.
Speaking of time, where do you find the time? Like, so you're building this, you're building this plumbing company. You're doing the drives. You seem to be doing speaking events all the time. You're doing all these different things. How do you manage your time?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I find a lot of people people help people, but when someone says they don't have time, I just ask them to show me their calendar. Right. So.
Jesus Christ, you're well organized.
Yeah, so like for anybody watching, it's an organized calendar. There's personal life in there, there's friend life in there, there's personal grooming, getting haircuts. My one friend in the UK, I remember I went on a holiday to see him, and Friday morning he gets a haircut every morning with his buddies, his guy friends, all business owners. They get a haircut and go for breakfast. And I went, and I just started an entrepreneurial journey. I said, how the hell do you have time to do this when you're running all these businesses? And he goes, Dan, when do you feel at your best? He goes, after haircut. He goes, it's simple. And I go, fuck, you're not wrong. So I started getting haircuts, not every week, but every week and a half. But you have to make time for the things that are important, and you have to learn how to delegate. A lot of people at the beginning, when they feel like they don't have any time, haven't learned how to delegate properly. And delegation is really important by supporting what people actually need.
Right.
So like, I would say like effectively describing or setting expectations. Right. So back to that, looking in the mirror, it's like, hey, make sure all the jobs are going well to my manager. It's like, what does that mean? It's like, no, setting the expectations. What's our process and procedure? And then how is he going to relay that message to me? Right. So everybody that I manage, I get a direct report every day from what they've done. It's just like a small summary. Right. It takes them 5 minutes. But it shows me what I need to do, shows them what they need to do, and it saves me an hour from calling them.
Right. But
most people don't plan their weeks.
Yeah.
So planning is important. And then I would recommend to anybody that's starting to run a bigger team to get an executive assistant.
Right.
It is like hands down the best thing in the world. There's a book called, and you can thank Sandy McKay for this. I can't not take credit, but Sandy McKay, thank you. And thank you to everybody that's about to buy this book. But it's called The Founder and Force Multiplier.
Okay.
And it's a book written by a real estate executive and his EA on how to effectively use an EA.
Really?
It's a great book.
What is it? Just like a blueprint, essentially? Like how to bring on an EA and what to delegate, that kind of thing? Or?
Pretty much, but it also talks about how strong a relationship has to be.
Right.
If you're going through something or something's coming up or you need a day off or, certain things come up in your life, sharing those things and also like being able to allow for there to be a problem.
Right.
So
that's interesting. Tell me more about that, because I found that very interesting. I deal with a lot of plumbers, right, on a day-to-day basis. I know you've sort of transitioned to more you're running the business, but you're the first plumber I've ever met that has an executive assistant, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about like when you decided that. What made you think, okay, I'm getting an assistant? How has it changed your life? Like, tell me about the whole process. Because I think a lot of business owners, like, I say plumbers, right? But they're all business owners.
Yep.
And I think, like you say, a lot of them should have these executive assistants, right? Tell me how it's sort of affected your whole process.
Yeah, totally. Well, so I can't give any relationship advice, but I'll give people advice, which is most entrepreneurs, as soon as they get to work, that's their happy space. That is their playground. Mm-hmm. Their personal life usually takes a back seat. I challenge that a little bit. Mm-hmm. I would say their scheduled life takes priority. Right. Their unscheduled life takes a back seat.
Right.
So things that are not scheduled. Mm-hmm. And also entrepreneurs, a lot of them have ADHD or ADD, whatever you want to call that. But for me, if I don't have a planned weekend, I get into trouble.
Right.
That could be, randomly spending money unnecessarily by looking for things to do, or not getting my like daily tasks done, or my things for my personal life. So for me, an EA, which is an executive assistant, which is the combination between personal assistant, right? Like I'm not the president. I don't need a personal assistant, but an EA strolls the line of business and personal.
Right. Okay.
So by making sure what you want. And so setting that kind of tone, I think, is really important for a lot of people when they're going to have time with family, when they're going to have time with friends, when they're going to have time with themselves maybe, or going to see an event or sporting event and stuff like that. So, I asked you about when you asked me when to do the podcast, I could tell you in minutes when I was able and when I was not able.
Right.
Right. And then you kind of set your time. So it's learning to say no as well.
Yeah.
No, sorry, I can't make that work. I have prior commitments.
Yeah.
And then it's sticking to your schedule.
Right.
So most entrepreneurs don't like being late, don't like missing things. But if you can stick to your schedule and you just kind of work that, it's like a nice dance, right? Especially being in Toronto, it's a little bit different. Traffic, not knowing where the building is, learning where to park. Like I'm always trying to be 15 minutes early.
It's a whole different ball game in the city. Right?
It's
quite something.
Even for me downtown, like I live now in King West. when I book my appointments, if I book them in the evening, I'll try to find something that I can walk to.
Right.
So that I can go to my condo, park myself, go upstairs, drop my stuff, and then I go back out.
Right.
But I'm walking,
Right.
which is totally different from life in Hamilton.
Absolutely.
And it's a change. It's a shift, right? And I've made so many mistakes doing it, right? I drive, a 20-minute walk turns into a 35-minute car ride both ways and $35 in a parking spot.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of just going for an afternoon stroll. Might show up a little sweaty, but that's okay. But yeah, EAs are great. Scheduling is really important, but also giving up. If I can say anything, like everybody's special, but you're not special.
Right.
There's a proven process that works. So I'll give you this story about Sandy McKay.
Yeah.
So Sandy McKay, he runs multiple Keller Williams brokerages,
Right.
like all different locations, Hamilton, Vaughan, and I said the same thing. So, and he's always traveling.
Right.
Or at least what you see online, right?
Yeah.
I go, what do you do? How do you do it? And he goes, you got to get an EA. Because I booked a meeting and it was with his EA. And the next day, this is why he did it to me like this. The next day, I had a copy of the book on my desk. Because he texted his EA while we were at lunch and said, send Dan the thing. Yeah.
That's brilliant. So
it's like, how do you utilize support?
Right. So you're sort of like buying back your time in a sense, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's brilliant.
You've got to make sure your time's worth money, or you're just spending money.
Yeah.
And you can't just become lazy, which most people aren't going to do.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's why they call it the founder and force multiplier.
Right.
So you're multiplying force.
Right. I find you do a good job with that multiplying force. It seems from the outside looking in. It seems like,
thank you. Yeah, it's a work in progress. Like we have not. I mean, we still struggle in a lot of areas, but it's like it's all part of the journey, right? There's no finish line.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, we've made it and we're just sitting pretty, right?
It never ends, right?
No,
it's just constantly evolving.
And we always say like, well, we could have been there, but we just didn't want that.
Yeah.
Right? If I stayed with 10 plumbers, I'd be good right now.
Yeah.
You're sitting in Hamilton, sitting in an office.
You wanted to keep pushing, keep moving. Right.
Yeah, supporting more people, giving more people opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? It's incredible how many apprentices we put through our program. Giving opportunities to guys like myself, younger days, and girls like myself, younger days, and yeah, it's great. It's a good feeling.
So, does that excite you? Tell me what excites you. What gets you moving?
Yeah, people seeing like personal development as well.
Right.
The better I can be, the better I can be for others.
Right.
The more I can share and grow. I like success in a lot of different ways. Seeing the outcomes of things and seeing things being built is awesome.
Right.
But yeah, becoming the best version of myself so I can support and help grow others. Right. There's no better gift.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
I love it. Put a little tagline under that.
Yeah. Well,
yes.
You know what? Someone asked me my why.
Yeah.
And it was like, fuck,
That's always a tough question, right?
It's a tough one. And it's like, well, what do you need? And yeah, I recently downsized, downsized from 800 square feet to 600 square feet.
Right.
And looking around, it's like, man, I don't need much.
Right.
Right. You go on holiday. Sure. It's good. The new pickup trucks are nice. Awesome. But it's like, what gives me joy? One of our managers is building a custom home right now. Could not be happier for him.
Yeah.
He's got 2 young kids. He's building his own home, his dream home, by taking a ton of risk. And I truly don't think he would have done it without me being brought through his life. I didn't do it for him, but I mean, he took the things that I taught him and
applied it to his life, essentially.
Yeah, and seeing his success that's the best gift I could get.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's really nice.
So that's your why, essentially.
Yeah. If I could be my best version, there's a Jim Rohn quote. I was talking to somebody earlier, actually. So people used to say, I'll help you if you help me.
Right.
But his comment is, I'll help me for you if you help you for me.
Right.
And so if I'm the best version of myself doing the best things, well, then it's going to benefit you.
Right. So it's sort of rubbing off on all the people around you.
Of course. Yeah.
Everyone you touch is sort of coming up with you in a sense, right?
Yeah.
That's fucking brilliant, man. Jeez. So tell me about the apprentices you bring on. I know you're a huge advocate for apprentices and like bringing people into the trade.
Yeah.
I know you're affiliated through or with Trade Smart, right? That's something you developed,
Yep.
as I understand it. Tell me about that whole side of it.
Yeah. I was the under 40 chair of the Builders Association for the WHBA, which in Toronto is BILD, BILD,
Right.
which we're a member of as well. But so a number of years, probably 6 years ago now, I was going to some of the events, and I'm not a huge small talk guy, so I try to kind of get a good conversation going. So good question to start if anybody's thinking of it is, what's your biggest challenge at the moment? And usually stirs up a pretty good conversation. And the follow-up question to that is, well, what are you doing about it?
Right.
And that's where a lot of people get stumped. So for me, it was, okay, what's your biggest challenge? What's your biggest challenge? What's your biggest challenge? And people would always say staff, labor, our youth. I said, okay, what are we doing about it? Nothing. No one wants to work. Everybody sucks. And then some people would be like, oh, we're creating an internal training program.
Right.
I'm like, okay, who's paying for this? But that's what it's come to, right? Our education system is great once you can get to it.
Yeah.
So I had this crazy idea called Trade Smart College. Originally it was called Trade Up, but it was the name was copywritten from something. Thank God, because Trade Smart's a much better name.
Yeah, Trade Smart's cool. I like that more.
Yeah. So yeah, Trade Smart College. So about 5-6 years ago, I came up with the concept by myself, and just beat it against the wall. Talk to everybody and anybody about it. How it would work, why it would work. Try to figure out any problems that might come up with it. Because I don't need to own a college. Like it's yes, it's going to solve a problem, but it's not what I need to do in my life, right? And I don't know how. And then through, beat it against the wall, came up with it, and pretty much had it like packaged. So essentially the concept is it's an 8-month program, 2 months in class, and 6 months of a tiered paid program.
Okay.
So it's an unpaid internship to start, and then you earn as you learn. So like essentially the employer has the opportunity to say like, yes, you're worth being paid, or you need a little bit more work.
Right. Okay.
So that's a 2-week tier system. So essentially in 10 weeks, you can go from not having any experience in the trade to being paid in an internship.
Right.
In the 2 months in class, we take 5 compulsory trades. So plumbing, electrical, carpentry, automotive, and HVAC. Right. They're all in the same classroom.
Okay.
And they're all learning the foundation and basics of how to be a good tradesperson.
So you bring one person in, for example, and they sort of get an overall understanding of all those trades, or is it like they're each coming in under the individual programs?
No, so they're all in the same classroom.
Right. Okay.
And it's how to be a good employee.
All right.
And how to succeed within the trades. So our manifest is that at the beginning of any position, you're not doing anything very skillful trade related.
Right.
Because you shouldn't be. Because you don't know how.
Yeah.
So for us, one of the things that we're doing is we're actually connecting the students with the companies to make sure that they're the right fit. Right. So you got to show up on time. So our classes run from 7:15 to 4:05. Right. Guess why that is?
Proper trades hours.
Yeah, 7:30 to 4. Right. You can't be late or miss any days because you can't miss the first 2 months of your job or be late for the first 2 months of your job. One of the probing questions that we always ask everybody is, what's on time mean to you? Every single employer gives us a different answer. Right. And so what we teach the students is to ask. Okay. Right? I might be 5 minutes early and you might want me 15 minutes early, and now you're upset with me, but I think I'm being early. Right. The goal is to ask
you.
Right. And then, as the world puts people in place for different reasons, I met my business partner, who was the dean of Laurier University out in Waterloo, Bruce. And so without Bruce, none of this could be possible. And it's really a team effort to put it together. So we went in for our application. So we're an accredited college in the Ministry of Colleges on Universities and Colleges of Ontario.
Right.
So we actually offer diploma as well.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. So it's really, really, I'm very passionate about it. I come from a university family background. I was definitely the odd fish in the bunch. No fault of my family's at all. It's just that they knew that if you go to university, you know, you'll get a degree, get a job, you'll be successful enough. And they had no idea what an apprenticeship was. So my goal is to kind of make sure that the right people are coming into the right industries so that they can have a good, happy, enjoyable life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And
that part of it is so important, right? Because, I mean, I went to school in high school in Canada, right? And in high school, I found you were always pushed that university route. Not, again, no fault of their own, like you mentioned, but it's just what people know.
Yep.
So I guess sort of the biggest part of it is how do you educate people and how do you sort of bring them down the path or the right path for them?
Yeah, well, like there's a conversation to be had about like you see people changing pumps.
Yeah.
Some of those pumps are sewage pumps, correct?
Yeah.
It's a tough job, right?
Yeah, it's a nasty job.
Little nasty, right? Those people get paid well?
Yeah, they do well.
Would you do it for that money?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I probably would.
Yeah, some people won't.
Right.
And so the question is like, what do you want to do for your living? And so you can't push anybody to, like, you could not pay me to be a doctor.
Right.
If I had the ability to, you couldn't pay me. Right. I could not be in a hospital setting my whole life. You also couldn't pay me to be a grade school teacher. I couldn't do it. Right. I don't have it's not something that excites me. I don't have the passion for it. When I get into situations where I could be a politician, right? I can't deal with, like, it's not a mean thing, but like sometimes it's really hard to deal with the wrong mindset of person, right? I like to choose who I work with, choose who I work for. So that's me though. I've met some of the most incredible politicians recently that love what they do and see a huge impact in what they do. And they know that the stuff that maybe bothers me, they push that aside because of their mission.
Right.
Okay. So it's about finding what's good for that person, but also keeping it aware. Nobody has a passion for anything they suck at.
Yeah.
So when you start, you got to find other reasons for them to have some sort of kind of drive to go. Because no one has a passion for anything they suck at. Yeah. I was a horrible plumber when I started.
Really?
The amount of drill bits I broke, you have no idea. So teeth I broke out. But then you start learning and you start realizing like, oh my God, I'm actually not bad at this. Right. And then, oh my God, I'm the solution for people.
Right. So you sort of stack those skills and you find your own value within that.
Yeah. Sense, right? You can call me today and I can have somebody at your house within 24 hours from Barrie to Niagara Falls to London. Right. If you had a plumbing or HVAC emergency. Right. That's a great feeling. I'm very grateful for that feeling. And I could probably tell them what the problem is before even going there. I can see through walls, which is crazy to think. But when you go into the doctors and you're like, oh, I got this earache. And they're like, well, have you drank this? And you're like, what are you talking about? It's an earache. And they're like, no, this is what it is. And you're just like, how did you know that?
It's the same way you see the pipes in the wall.
Exactly. When I call you about a pump and I'm like, it's grinding. And you're like, have you checked the solenoid? I'm like, what do you know? It's not the solenoid, it's the impeller. And you're like, no, it's the solenoid, right? Yeah. So everybody's got that thing, but you don't have it when you start.
Right.
So you need to find other things, whether it's a person. I want to be like that person, right? When you want to be a basketball player, you want to be like LeBron. You want to start a hockey player, you want to be like McDavid. You know what I mean? Like you see somebody that you idolize and that kind of pulls you towards it. In the trades, it's, you want to be Mike Holmes or something. Like, it's a little different.
So how are you trying to represent and be that person in the trades, like somebody to look up to and somebody to aspire to be? That's sort of the goal with.
I think it depends. Like, there's a statement: no one doing worse than you will ever talk negatively about you.
Yeah,
I think some people in the industry Like I don't ever try to tell people I'm the best tradesperson.
Right.
There's some companies out there with absolutely way better tradespeople than me. I am a people person. I love bringing people together. I like solving problems. I like using my skill sets to stay calm and level-headed. But yeah, let the pros do their thing. So yeah, I would hope that from a business side of things, people kind of admire things that I'm doing and sharing. That's why I share my journey so much frequently. I have a little bit of a barrier to entry, but anybody that ever wants to reach out, they're happy to. I'm always available, but I used to help too many people that didn't want to help themselves.
Right. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, you feel a little guilty, right? But you do have to value your time. You see the schedule, right? Like, you know, you have to learn to say no. And if someone's persistent, like, you know, like you said earlier, you reach out to me again. Yeah, hell yeah. Right. But if you saw the amount of LinkedIn DMs I get on a daily basis, that I know. Imagine. Well, I mean, and you probably get the same, right? Yeah. Like it's if you're a little bit active, you get a lot of response.
Yeah, it fills up quick.
Yeah, you get those AI bots. Yeah. I know how to deal with those really good.
Oh yeah? Oh yeah. What's your strategy? Tell me.
I don't want to give away my secrets because AI might come get me. But so as long as you start using some good slang, you can usually find out if someone's with AI or not. And a lot of the times it's because they've gotten those AI bots already put in, right? So they don't understand their own response times. Right. So my good one is, "What up, broski?" Right? They just can't register. AI can't register broski. I go dog with a W, DAWWWG. That's a good one.
So you just throw them off.
Or I'll be like, just killing it, eh, boss man? And like, just again, it doesn't know what to do. And it's hilarious because I'll get a response like 2 weeks later because AI just doesn't respond. Yeah. Right? Or they'll say something silly and I'll just be like, well, you really lost an opportunity to meet me. Yeah. And for some people, they don't care. I'm just another, number on LinkedIn. And for some people, I'm really sorry. And they try to rekindle the relationship. But it goes to show me like, it's not to be rude. You don't want to be rude, but respect my time. Right.
Yeah. So that makes sense. Because I remember when I reached out to you, some of the sort of slang you use, I was like, all right, this is cool. But, it catches you a little off guard, right? Everyone on LinkedIn is so formal. And then you hear like, "What's up, big man?" Or you hear whatever I can't remember what exactly you said, but I'm like, oh shit, this guy, pretty casual and how do I say? But yeah, it was interesting. So you could even throw people off in a sense, right? Because people don't know how to respond to that, especially if you, like you say, if you don't care about the interaction as much, you probably might not follow up with that. And it's a good filter actually.
It's great, man. Like I care about everybody. Yeah. Right. Just do they care about you or do they want to? And like I try to be I'm very authentic in the sense of like, there's business to be had and we need to be proper, but I'm a funny guy. Right. You're right. Like to have a good time. We don't yell and argue and swear in the office, which is like, I always, sometimes our staff member, when they make mistakes, it's like, have I ever yelled at you? Has anyone ever yelled at you? And no. I said, so why didn't you come to me with the problem earlier? Yeah.
Why are you scared?
Well, I was upset. I was nervous. And again, it's just, but reiterating that and showcasing it to them, like this is a safe space and like, problems are going to happen and mistakes are going to happen and we need to be able to fix them quickly and effectively. And I need the whole story. Right? You didn't send the email. That's okay. We got to solve the problem. You can be stern, but you don't want to yell.
I like that.
Yeah.
So tell me, I mean, you mentioned something earlier that's been burning in my mind. The question you like to ask people, what's your biggest problem? Or what's your biggest issue that you haven't solved?
Biggest issue that I haven't solved? Business-wise right now, staying consistent in a large market. And I would say also dialing in our consistent financials. So like KPIs. So we've been doing a little bit of like we hired an estimator for the first time 2 years ago, and it takes a while to kind of get into the groove of things. And it's not just me on the projects. So this year, one of our focuses is to actually slow down to speed up.
Right.
So we're working on some like really cool KPI metrics.
Okay.
So say before we do an estimate for you, we need to call you. We need to find out what the start date is. Just kind of vet. We have all these vetting tools. Instead of before, you would have just got an email, get some plans, need a quote, send it off. So we have an intake process and an outtake process. Right. And so we've hired a salesperson for the first time, which is pretty cool. His name's Andrew, great guy. You'll see him all over LinkedIn. Right. Just dialing in that. So that our biggest, like your biggest problem is always your biggest opportunity. So our biggest challenge right now is dialing in our sales and our lead process to create better efficiencies for not only giving and receiving quotes, but also like quality of work and then support on site.
Okay, that's interesting. And how are you seeing? How is that changing your business? Like looking at the process, looking, the whole sales side that you're bringing in. How is that changing your business?
Well, EOS, I'm stealing this from them, but so every problem is either a people problem or a process problem.
Right.
So if it's a people problem, you ask yourself the question, do they get it? Do they want it? And they have the capacity to do it. Right. So they might get the job. They might want it, but they might not have the capacity to do it.
Right.
And that means it's a people problem. Right. If they've got all three, well, then it's a process problem. Right. So you don't have a process for how to take a phone call. You don't have a process for how to respond to a LinkedIn DM.
Right.
It can be as definitive or as broad as, we don't have a sales process. Right. Well, under sales process, there's, 10 different processes. Right. But so we try to like define that. And that's been a really cool thing that we've learned over the years through EOS. Right. EOS is very like, I tell everybody it's the cheat code to business.
Really?
Yeah.
So EOS is what? That's the name of the book? Or is that
EOS is the name of the process. The book is called Traction.
I've heard a lot about that, but every time I see the cover, it just doesn't grab me. But I've heard a lot of good things, and I keep thinking like I should read this, but I just haven't.
Yeah, read it.
Really,
read it. I give it away for free. I got you a copy in my office. I'll bring it by the show.
I would love.
There's an implementation process of it. It takes about 2 years to go through the whole journey. We're in our third year now. It doesn't solve your business, but it solves the strategy and structure of your business. Right. If you have people, you need to have people in the business. It's a people-focused process. Right. So if it's just you, it'll help, but it's not going to solve your problems. Right.
So it'll help you essentially structure your people, who's doing what are the processes associated.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's brilliant.
And then also accountability. Brings accountability into play. People know what they're going to do. Right. So if someone doesn't do their job properly, well, did they know it was supposed to be their job? Are you just saying it?
Right. Okay. That's interesting. Shit, man. So every time I ask you something, I have so many things to think about after, so I just get kind of...
It was a Cole's Notes version.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot, man. It's the thing about business is like, there's a lot of consumption without a lot of action. And so sometimes, I got caught in it for a while where I just stopped listening to podcasts because I would come into my office every day and fucking have a new idea. Yeah. And your team just gets so bogged down with your new ideas.
Yeah. I get caught there a lot as well because I'm always sort of searching, okay, what's next? What am I going to do? And same thing, you come up with all these ideas and all these things and you shoot it to your team and then they're like, okay, this is a new thing. I heard another thing last week, right?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
EOS.
EOS, same thing.
Yeah, so it gives you that opportunity to like, okay, Dan, you had an idea, but it's not our priority in the next 90 days. No, don't forget about it. We're going to put it on the list.
Right.
And then the EOS, you live in 90-day circles.
Right.
So pretty much you revisit every 90 days and you say, okay, is that still important?
Right.
Okay, then let's pull it in. Okay. Let's do it. But last 90 days, you said these were important. So we're going to stick to these and your ideas are going to go over there.
So if it's that important in 90 days, it should still be relevant.
Exactly. Right. And a lot of times for entrepreneurs, we're always trying to,
if anything, we're our worst enemy in that sense, right?
Yeah. We're brilliant. right? But the person that can take an idea and implement the idea, they're brilliant too.
Yeah.
And they're just as important.
Yeah.
And so it's identifying who you are. And so back to that visionary, I'm a visionary. Right. I'm like a thriving visionary. Okay. I'm not an integrator. Yeah. So identifying that I need a strong integrator, which we're very fortunate to have, is awesome. And she could not be further from a visionary than,
right.
Yeah.
So she's more get it done. She's going to get down to nitty gritty kind of
thing. A
thing.
lot of the time it's introvert, extrovert.
Right.
It's a very similar concept. Like I could go to this event, then another event, then another event, then another event. And I'm like, this fills me up.
Yeah.
This gets me going. If I'm alone in my office for too long, that's not good. Right? I don't like being by myself.
Yeah.
So I'm always on the go. I'm always doing things, filling up my cup. An introvert or an introvert extrovert, which is someone that like acts like an extrovert, but really needs their time to recharge.
Yeah.
Those are really interesting as well on like how you act within a business. Just give me my job. Let me go do it. Right. So give me clear direction and I'll go.
So sort of not picking and choosing, but identifying your strengths.
Yeah. And filling in your weaknesses.
With the other people, essentially, right? That kind of complement.
Yeah, like a lot of people talk about business partners, right? And so like me and Bruce it's a great example. Bruce is a thriving integrator and I'm a thriving visionary. And Bruce, Bruce just gets stuff done. I don't know how he does it sometimes. And especially some of the things he does are incredibly hard to do. And for me, it's like I'm polar opposite, right? I got a million ideas. He'll be like, Dan, just go over there and be in your circle. But for me, with a business partner, that's a great combination. Yeah. Whereas a lot of people, the conversation I say, and I do say this pretty sternly, but if it's two people in business doing the same thing, it's just two people that need a hug.
Yeah.
Right?
You don't really need each other.
You don't need each other, which is fine, but just know that. Right? And then you're going to get into trouble because one person's going to be working harder than the other person, and that's where the problems lie.
Yeah.
It's just, I've seen it so many times, I've studied it, that's the outcome. Whereas on the other side, if you say you're a really good plumber and you don't know how to do sales or blah, 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 go find a salesperson, go find a visionary, right? Go plumb, right? A lot of plumbers or HVAC techs or whatever, business owners, they're like, oh man, I hate paperwork. Well, then don't do it. Get someone else to do it that loves paperwork, right? Hire a bookkeeper. Like my bookkeeper doesn't like being on a Zoom call. He likes doing spreadsheets, right? He loves it. He couldn't imagine talking to 50 people a day. That's my job, right? So he doesn't have a job if he doesn't have anything to input. So it's kind of one of those things like find out who you are and then just like push for the other side and appreciate. Because everybody is very, very unique. Everybody is useful and everybody's special. And I think it's just like finding out those skill sets and then like kind of giving people love taking on more of what they're good at. Right. Yeah. You want me to meet more people? You want me to go on more sales calls? Yeah, no problem. Right. You want me to come up with more spreadsheets and, do more deep dives on financial, like, no, it's not my thing.
Right. I find that's almost one of the hardest things is identifying those traits and how they may complement you. Because I find, like you say, you could be an extrovert and you could like talking to 50 people a day, but you hate spreadsheets, right? But in your head, you can't imagine that somebody would like to sit there and do these spreadsheets, but they do, right? So I guess the problem is identifying like, okay, this person, they actually just like spreadsheets, like wrapping your head around that. That's a big thing in itself.
Totally. Well, it's like ambition, right? People that own a business, especially when they start complaining, oh man, maybe I should just fold this up. I said, okay, where are you going to work? What job are you going to get? And for some people, they're just, they're, oh no, I'm not going to work anywhere. Well, stop talking about it.
Yeah.
And other people like, when you talk about personal life, like, it took a long time to get where I'm at mentally and not just be constantly kind of suffering. When you own a business, I mean, I remember my dad passed away and I had 2 days off, 2 days off to mourn at the time. And after that, people were like, well, I need my job done. Yeah. Right. And whose fault is that? It's no one's fault. It's just part of the process of being a business owner and being a business owner like myself who didn't just say, fuck it, because I had staff working for me at the time. And that was the decision that I made. It's not the right or the wrong decision.
Mm.
Some people might have said, whatever, and lost money or let
Yeah.
people down or whatever the hell they decide to do. But I mean, some people like stability and that's their comfort zone.
Yeah.
Not everybody is an entrepreneur. That's one of the things that
Yeah.
it was hard for me to identify.
Yeah.
Like I was like, why isn't everybody doing this? Yeah. But there's a conversation. So a lot of people summarize entrepreneurship as like a entirety. So like what I would say is entrepreneurship means that you like motivating people.
Mm.
Solopreneurship means you like working for self, or I would say under 5 people.
Mm.
And then intrapreneurship, which again, this is an incredibly, incredibly important position, and also usually the one that makes the most money and gets paid the most,
Right.
is a number 2, 3, or 4 of a business.
Right. So working within the business.
Working within the business under an entrepreneur, with a ton of entrepreneurial traits. We have a bunch of people in our business that are entrepreneurs, and they do very well, right? And they've identified that they don't need to take on that extra pressure. Right. They'll take on the internal pressure, which sometimes can be more.
Yeah.
But it's cool to see each person identify who they are.
Yeah. No, I find that's interesting as well. And again, it goes back to like, you can't imagine that somebody would want to be the entrepreneur, right? But like you say, when you average it out, those guys, they really do the best out of everybody, right?
Man, we're talking how much vacation guys get? Like how many weeks off a year, pat leave,
everything, right?
Yeah, and opportunity, right? And guidance, right? Like it's funny when you get into business and all of a sudden you have to have all the answers. It's like, I had somebody I could ask before. Now I don't have anybody to ask.
That was one thing I struggled with early on. Was I'm a young guy, right? And you started when you were a young guy too.
Yeah.
You kind of have to become the person who has all the answers. But let's be real, being that young, you don't have much answers at all, if any, right? So that was one thing I struggled with in the start, and I found what kind of helps is finding those people who have the right answers, and if they want to work with you and they want to be that person who has the answers, and sort of leaning on your team a bit. And then obviously, like, I have my dad that helps and that kind of stuff, right?
Totally.
So yeah, that's a huge part of it, is right. Like, you have that pressure to almost be the guy that has the answers, right?
Yeah.
We can't always be that guy. That's
well, the gift I'll give you at the end of the podcast, and for anybody listening, it's what's the date today? It's September 30th. I don't know if that messes up the launch date, but it's September 30th. It is 7:49 in the evening, and to date, there is no problem that we haven't solved.
right.
So every problem that comes our way, we will solve it. It might cost money and it might upset some people, but we'll solve the problem.
Right. I love it.
That's my gift.
Dan, guess put that on a poster.
That's it.
Dan, thank you so much for being on the podcast. This was brilliant. I can't thank you enough.
My pleasure, man.
If there's anything, I guess you gave your final speech, right?
Yeah. No, that's it.
Thank you for being on, man.
Hats off to guys like him, just putting on a podcast like this for everybody, giving back to the industry. I think it's fantastic. And for everybody watching, give us a shout. If you have any questions or anything specific, reach out at Guest Plumbing, or you can find me, Daniel Guest, on LinkedIn.
Thanks so much, Dan.
Thanks.